Dracula. One of the, if not the, most widely recognized horror icons in pop culture. So popular, in fact, that many are even familiar with the classic novel he first appeared in. Bram Stoker's Dracula. And as someone who's actually read it, I like it plenty. Though I haven't really felt the desire to reread it since my first go. But then I watched The Last Voyage of the Demeter. For context, in the middle of the novel, there is a passage detailing Dracula's journey from mainland Europe to England. Framed in the context of a recovered captain's log, it details Dracula stowing away on the merchant ship Demeter, feeding off the crew one by one, and eventually running the ship aground on English shores. The film is about that journey, and the crew's horrific experience contending with Dracula. I thought that was a great idea. A fresh spin on the Dracula tale, a unique maritime setting, and the approval of horror icons Stephen King and Guillermo del Toro, the perfect storm to sweep audiences to the seats. So, how's it doing so far? Oh. I wouldn't call this movie poorly made. There's care and tact put into it, from the acting to the production design to the score by Bear McCreary. There's even a few brutally effective moments that really stuck with me. It's a competent film, one that I could see satisfying moviegoers looking to kill a few hours. And I'd probably feel the same way if it weren't attached to such an iconic property as Dracula. And it pains me to say, but what they do with this character, well, sucks. Notice how I use the word character, because Dracula is, and always has been, a character. Calling him a monster always felt strange to me, because he's so much more than that. He has a history, he has a personality and motivation. He's a survivor, a romantic, an academic. And yes, he does take on beastly appearances and behaviors, but never at the expense of his intellect and rationale. You can probably guess where I'm going with this, because as strange as it is to call Dracula a monster in my eyes, it's even stranger calling this monster Dracula. Dracula in The Last Voyage of the Demeter is little more than just a creature. He keeps this pale, devilish, decrepit bat form throughout 99% of the film, the design of which isn't even that interesting. He says maybe 5 words total, and those words have almost no profundity or character about them. The most effective moments surrounding him are in the first third of the film, when he's weak and has to regain his strength, so he's forced to rely on trickery and camouflage to get his victims to come close to him. But after that, he just becomes a generic movie monster, snarling and hiding in the shadows only to jump out and grief the crew. You could have replaced him with anything. A poltergeist, a troll, a tatzelworm, and the film would have been no different. They do show him growing more powerful with each feeding, but that just amounts to the ability to fly and the ability to look cool when silhouetted against lightning. The missed potential here is cataclysmic. Why not, with every blood meal, Dracula grows not only stronger, but also more intelligent and more in control of his powers, eventually culminating in his fully human form? You could still have him start out as the creepy bat devil, but that would just make the progression all the more effective. The best scene in Robert Eggers' The Witch is when it's revealed that the goat, Black Phillip, was actually the devil hiding in plain sight, and he announces himself via a menacing whisper in the obscured form of a shadowy, debonair man creeping up behind Thomasin to help seal her fate. I bring this up because at the end of the film, Dracula does adopt a human-like composure, but his face remains just as monstrous. They really slapped some nice clothes on a bat and called it a day. It also ends with the main character pledging to hunt down Dracula once and for all, and, well, if you know the original story, you can probably guess that he failed somewhere along the way. The other thing this movie doesn't take full advantage of is its setting. It was touted as Alien on a Ship, which implies that the environment would be just as oppressive and unsettling as the monster itself. Sorry, movie. You are not Alien on a Ship. This could have been great. A 19th century merchant ship out at sea is laden with horror potential. Disease, power dynamics, paranoia, hostile conditions. These would have made for a great story without the presence of Count Dracula. The furthest this goes is Dracula killing off the livestock in the first third of the film. The crew is forced to live off rations after that. It's blamed on a rabies outbreak, and the main character suffers that trope where he's temporarily blamed for the misfortune. None of this happened till you showed up. Arg! There's a good sound cue where Dracula knocks on wood to try and fool the sailors into thinking they're trying to talk to each other, but again, all that I just talked about is the furthest it goes. I could easily go on for another 15 minutes about how Dracula could have really taken advantage of this setting to his benefit. But, as we already established, this is just a creature, not a cursed, conniving, eldritch asshole. Just a creature. There's also a recurring motif in the movie where characters attempt to use crucifixes or crosses to ward off Dracula, but to no effect. In horror media, cruciforms are a popular method of repelling Dracula and vampires in general, but this has been subverted. Stephen King's Salem's Lot comes to mind, where a priest's lack of faith and overwhelming fear nullifies the power of his cross. However, the apparent uselessness of such imagery in Last Voyage is never elaborated upon. They could have just been going for a "it doesn't work, fuck you" kind of angle, but the film doesn't actually attempt to confirm that. It might sound like a nitpick, but trust me, the amount of times it's invoked throughout makes it worthy of mention. I seriously feel like this movie is the result of a script that got butchered and rewritten until it was nothing more than a husk of its former self. The watered-down Dracula, the ideas that go nowhere, it just reeks of a story that lost its original vision. And yeah, from the looks of things, it totally was. The rights were first acquired in 2003, and it lingered in development hell, going through like half a dozen different directors, writers, and studios before finally settling with Andre Overdahl. This is more common in movies than you'd think, but boy does it show sometimes. If you're just looking for a horror movie to watch on a rainy weekend, The Last Voyage of the Demeter might satisfy that itch. But if you're looking for a respectful, well-rounded Dracula story, I'd first direct you to Francis Ford Coppola's Dracula. Or better yet, just read the actual book. The beauty of the Captain's Log is that it leaves much to the reader's imagination. They are free to interpret it however their dark minds desire. Unfortunately, this interpretation just wound up being bloodless. Alright, that's 2 vampire puns, and I've hit this video's quota. So, tell me your thoughts about Dracula, this movie, vampires in general. Whatever it is, I want to hear it. And also consider supporting a rising horror author like me by checking out my novel, Hell's Gulf. Links in the description. And with that, I will see you all next time.